They said Officer Maya Carter was the kind of woman you could set your watch by. Always on time, always neat, always in control. At Cedar Ridge Correctional Facility, a gray fortress rising from the Georgia clay, discipline wasn't just part of the job. It was survival. And for 12 years, Maya had survived better than anyone. To her coworkers, she was the quiet one. The woman who didn't gossip in the break room or flirt by the gates. She spoke only when necessary, kept her uniform pressed to perfection, and clocked out exactly at 7 p.m., no matter the chaos around her. Even the inmates called her Officer Ice, not out of disrespect, but because she seemed untouchable, cold, steady, made of stone. What no one saw was the emptiness she carried home every night. Her apartment sat on the edge of town, the kind of place where cicadas were louder than traffic. Inside, it was spotless, almost sterile. One couch, one framed photograph of her and her younger sister Nia taped to the refrigerator. A single Bible on the nightstand. And silence. She lived like a ghost. No social media, no visitors, no friends from work. Only a routine. Wake before dawn, coffee black, uniform crisp, badge polished, and out the door before the sun had fully risen. Maya hadn't always been this way. Once, she believed in love, in promises and soft things. She could still remember the smell of banana bread baking on a Sunday morning, the kind her ex-husband used to beg her to make. But that was before everything fell apart. His name was Jordan, a firefighter with a smile that could sell miracles. They'd met at a charity blood drive when Maya was 26. 2 uniforms, 2 public servants, 1 fast romance. For a while it was good, stable, predictable, the kind of love she'd prayed for. But good doesn't always last. Long shifts turned into excuses. Late calls became lies. And one day, a photo landed in her inbox, Jordan laughing, hand in hand with another woman outside a motel. Maya didn't scream. She didn't throw plates or beg for answers. She just packed a suitcase and left. The divorce was quick, clean, clinical. He didn't fight for her, didn't even call. But the betrayal carved something out of her, a quiet hollow that nothing could fill. After that came the silence, the empty apartment, the canceled holiday dinners, the slow withdrawal from everyone who once cared. Nia had tried, calling, texting, even showing up at her door, but Maya couldn't bear to let her in. How could she explain that the things she once believed in most had left her faithless, not in God, but in people? And buried even deeper than that heartbreak was another scar, one she never spoke of. Years before the marriage, when she was 24, she'd been pregnant. It wasn't planned, but she'd wanted that baby more than anything. Then came a rainy afternoon on I-85, a hydroplane car, a flashing ambulance. She walked away with bruises. The baby didn't. No one ever knew. Not even Nia. The only proof that child had ever existed was a worn ultrasound photo folded into the back of her Bible. Sometimes, on her way home from work, she'd stop by the grocery store and find herself frozen in the baby aisle, her fingers brushing over tiny socks or pacifiers she'd never use. And every time, she'd whisper the same line under her breath, "Some things aren't meant to stay." That was the woman who wore the badge at Cedar Ridge. The one who didn't take sick days, who volunteered for double shifts, who kept her heart locked behind a steel door. To the world, she was order personified. Inside, she was running on memory and discipline alone. The inmates noticed in their own way. They'd say things like, "Officer Carter don't play," or "She's the real deal." And she was. She followed every rule like it was gospel, until the day she met the one man who'd make her question them all. That day started like any other. The Georgia sun already burning by 8 a.m., the smell of disinfectant thick in the air. Maya was checking logbooks in the prison library when she heard a voice, steady, patient, almost calm, reading aloud to another inmate. It was a rare sound in that place, gentleness. She turned her head, just enough to see him. Andre Wells, inmate number 41286, age 29, convicted of aggravated assault and firearm possession. Serving 12 years, but he didn't look like the others. No twitch, no edge, just quiet focus. His eyes met hers for a second, steady, brown, and unafraid. She felt something shift, so slight she almost ignored it. For a heartbeat, She forgot where she was. Forgot the bars, the cameras, the rules. Then she turned back to her clipboard, face unreadable, pulse loud in her ears. That night, as she drove home along the empty highway, Maya caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Uniform still sharp, expression blank. But something small and dangerous had already begun to move beneath that surface. The rule keeper had looked into the eyes of a rule breaker, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. And in a place where silence was safety, that single glance would be the first sound of everything about to fall apart. The first time Andre Wells spoke to her, his voice didn't sound like it belonged in a place like Cedar Ridge. It wasn't sharp or defiant. It was calm, deliberate, like every word had been weighed before being released into the air. He was sitting at the back of the prison library, a worn law book open in front of him, helping another inmate make sense of an appeal. The way he explained things, patient, even gentle, was so out of place it made Maya pause in the doorway. For just a moment, the noise of keys and radios and distant shouting seemed to fade. Andre looked up, caught her watching. Their eyes met. No smile, no smirk, just recognition. Then Maya turned away, her face neutral again, clipboard clutched tighter in her hands. She told herself it was nothing, just another inmate doing time. But it wasn't nothing. Over the next few weeks, she found herself in that same library more often. Sometimes with real reasons, inventory checks, paperwork, random inspections. Other times, she couldn't have said why she was there at all. And each time, he was there too, reading or writing, his brown eyes scanning pages like they were maps out of the life he'd been trapped in. Andre wasn't like the others. He didn't yell for attention, didn't trade gossip, didn't play the power games that ruled life behind bars. He carried himself with a quiet kind of authority, the kind that didn't need to prove anything. Rumors among the staff said he'd once been in the military before life went sideways. A bar fight gone wrong, a gun in the wrong hand, 12 years for aggravated assault and illegal possession. Most men came out of sentences like that hardened or broken. Andre just seemed waiting. Maya noticed how he treated the others, how he stayed out of trouble even when provoked. In a place where decency could get you killed, that took courage or something deeper. One afternoon, while checking the sign-out sheet, she asked, "You always helping other inmates with their cases?" Andre glanced up. When they ask, most of them just need someone to explain the words. Courts speak a language that was never meant for people like us. That answer stuck with her long after she left the room. People like us. No one had ever said that to her before, not like that. Not with that mix of honesty and inclusion. She started looking forward to the small talk that had quietly replaced her loneliness. A quick exchange about a headline. A shared silence while she stamped documents. The rare moment when he made her laugh under her breath, and she immediately looked around to make sure no one heard. The connection was dangerous, and she knew it. But it didn't feel like temptation. It felt like oxygen after too long underwater. The other officers didn't notice anything yet. To them, Maya Carter was still the no-nonsense, rule-bound professional. But inside, something fragile was starting to stir. Andre never flirted, never crossed the line. He didn't have to. Every look he gave her carried more understanding than most people managed in entire conversations. Sometimes, when she locked his unit for the night, he'd be standing near the bars, reading. "Evening, Officer Carter," he'd say quietly. She'd nod, answer with the same steady tone she used for everyone else. But later, in her car, she'd catch herself smiling, and then hate herself for it. Maya tried to fight it. She prayed at night, flipping through her Bible, telling herself it was just exhaustion, sympathy, anything but what it really was. But the truth crept in slow, like water under a door. Andre made her feel seen again. Weeks passed. Their talks got longer. Once, during inspection, she asked him why he read so much. He closed the book, met her eyes, and said, "Because when you're trapped, knowledge is the only way to remember you're still free." That sentence hit her like a confession and a warning all at once. For a few seconds, she forgot to breathe, because she understood exactly what he meant. Maya Carter had been free for years, But she hadn't really lived since the day she packed her suitcase and left her old life behind. As she walked away that evening, her heart thudded against her ribs in a way it hadn't in years. She told herself this would end here, that it had to. But inside the walls of Cedar Ridge, rules were clear and hearts didn't listen. Soon, that single moment of recognition between guard and inmate would become the spark that burned down both of their lives. It happened on a Thursday night in late October, the kind of night when even the walls of Cedar Ridge seemed to exhale. A thunderstorm rolled across the Georgia sky, heavy and restless, rattling the windows of the East Wing. Power flickered, lights dimmed, alarms blipped and reset. For most officers, it was routine chaos. For Maya Carter, it was the beginning of the end. She was working the night shift, again. It was easier that way. Fewer people, fewer eyes, fewer chances for a mask to slip. The rain outside came down in sheets, making the razor wire shimmer under each flash of lightning. Inside, the smell of damp concrete and disinfectant hung thick. Down in the kitchen wing, an electrical short had knocked out one of the cameras. It wasn't unusual. Maintenance could take hours. But that small patch of darkness, one blind corner where the surveillance feed went black, was the kind of gap rules were written to prevent. When Maya made her rounds, she passed the corridor and saw him there. Andre Wells, inmate number 41286, standing by the storage doorway with a mop in his hand, pretending to finish cleaning duty. But his eyes met hers before she could speak. There was no fear in them, just quiet understanding. "Camera's out again," he said softly, almost as if to explain why he was there. "I know," Maya replied. She should have walked away, should have radioed maintenance, logged the malfunction, done everything by the book. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped closer. The sound of rain hitting the roof filled the silence between them. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Neither should you." That one sentence, simple, honest, unraveled everything she'd spent years building. The professionalism, the distance, the armor. Her breath caught. Andre this. He didn't touch her. Not yet. He just looked at her the way no one had in years, like she wasn't an officer or a mistake or a ghost. Just a woman. A human being who'd been alone too long. The thunder cracked overhead, and something inside her broke. She took one step closer, then another. When his hand brushed hers, every warning bell in her head screamed, but her heart was louder. For years, she'd been invisible. In that one reckless moment, she felt alive. The first kiss was clumsy, desperate, soaked in guilt. The second was worse, because she didn't want it to stop. When they finally pulled apart, Maya staggered back, breath shaking. "This can't happen again." Andre nodded, eyes full of something that wasn't lust. It was compassion, the kind that hurt to look at. "I know," but they both knew it was a lie. The next morning, she stood under the shower for nearly an hour, scrubbing her skin until it burned. No matter how hot the water ran, she couldn't wash off what she'd done. That day, she didn't eat, didn't answer her sister Nia's text, didn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the storage room, the flicker of lightning through the window, Andre's face, the feeling that something inside her had crossed a point of no return. By the next shift, she convinced herself it was a mistake. One night, never again. But the human heart is stubborn, especially one starved for warmth. The following week, she walked past the kitchen again. Andre didn't look up, but she could feel the air change when he realized she was there. Later, during library duty, their hands brushed as she passed him a clipboard. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Then it happened again. Another night, another malfunction, another stolen moment. Always brief, always in shadow, always ending with the same whispered lie. This is the last time. By December, they were meeting regularly. Hidden corners of the storage wing, an empty break room, the laundry closet behind the industrial dryers. Places cameras couldn't see and no one wanted to go. Each encounter left Maya torn between terror and something dangerously close to joy. She told herself she was still in control, that no one suspected, that she could end it whenever she chose. But she couldn't. Andre never begged or demanded. He just was, a calm she couldn't find anywhere else. When he spoke about his hopes for the future, about wanting to work construction again, to see his mother's grave. She believed him. He made her believe in redemption, and that belief was intoxicating. Yet even as she floated on that fragile illusion, the world around her began to close in. Her coworkers started noticing small things. How she volunteered for certain shifts, how she seemed distracted, how her reports came in late. Sergeant Ruth Coleman, sharp-eyed and seasoned, started watching her more closely. One night, as Maya left the facility, Ruth's voice stopped her at the gate. "You're working yourself too hard, Carter. Don't let this place eat you alive." Maya forced a smile. "I'm fine, ma'am." But Ruth didn't look convinced. That night, driving home, Maya replayed those words over and over. Maybe Ruth sensed something. Maybe the walls were already whispering. When she parked outside her apartment, she caught her reflection in the windshield. Eyes hollow, lips trembling, badge on her chest glinting under the streetlight. The reflection of a woman who'd spent her life enforcing rules and had finally broken the one she couldn't come back from. The test only took 3 minutes, but for Maya Carter, it felt like a lifetime. She sat on the edge of her bathtub, uniform still on, eyes locked on the plastic stick trembling in her hand. 2 pink lines. Clear. Unmistakable. The sound that came out of her wasn't a cry. It was a gasp, the kind you make when you've been punched in the chest. She set the test down on the sink, covered her mouth, and whispered, "No. No, no, no." It wasn't joy. It wasn't even disbelief. It was pure panic. All the rules she'd lived by, all the walls she'd built, they had just collapsed with one test strip from the pharmacy aisle. If anyone found out, she'd lose everything. Her job, her pension, her freedom. There were laws against this, laws she'd sworn to uphold. A relationship with an inmate wasn't just forbidden. It was a felony. Her mind raced. There had to be a mistake. Maybe the test was old. Maybe she'd read it wrong. But when she bought another one the next morning, the result was the same. Pregnant. She didn't go to work that day. She couldn't. She sat on the couch, blinds drawn, lights off, holding her stomach like she could somehow will the truth away. But the silence of the apartment only made it louder. The ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, each sound reminded her she wasn't alone anymore. By the next morning, her training took over. She put on her uniform, forced her hands to stop shaking, and drove to Cedar Ridge. Same gate, same gar shack, same greetings. "Morning, Carter." Morning. But everything felt different. The smell of bleach, the echo of her boots, the buzz of the security doors, it all pressed against her like judgment. And then there was Andre Wells. He noticed before anyone else. During lunch distribution, she avoided his gaze. During rounds, she cut through different corridors. But Andre was observant, and after weeks of whispered silences, avoidance spoke louder than words. One night, when she was alone near the janitor's corridor, he was waiting. "Officer Carter," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "You can't be here. I just need to know what's wrong." "Nothing," she lied. But the way her hands trembled gave her away. Andre reached out, gently catching her wrist. His voice softened. "Maya, look at me." She froze. He never used her first name before. Tears gathered before she could stop them. "I can't do this." "What can't you do?" "This," she whispered, pressing his hand against her stomach. "This is wrong." The world seemed to still. His hand stayed there, motionless, before he finally spoke, his voice low, almost reverent. "You're telling me?" She nodded. For a long time, neither moved. Then Andre smiled, sadly, but with awe. "You gave me something I never thought I'd have again. A future." Maya shook her head. "No, you don't understand. If they find out, I lose everything. They'll throw me in here beside you. Then we protect it," he said quietly. "Whatever it takes." She wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe love could survive walls, uniforms, laws. But she knew better. The prison didn't forgive mistakes. It buried them. Weeks passed. Maya wore looser uniforms, skipped cafeteria coffee, told co-workers she was just tired. But the changes were impossible to hide forever. She started switching to night shifts again. Fewer people to notice her growing belly. But even that drew attention. And Sergeant Ruth Coleman noticed first. Ruth had worked at Cedar Ridge for 20 years. She'd seen every kind of scandal come and go. smuggled phones, hidden contraband, crooked guards. But Maya? Maya was supposed to be untouchable. Ruth started watching quietly, checking sign-in logs, overlapping shifts, whom Maya requested to supervise. It didn't take long to notice the pattern. Her hours lined up suspiciously close to Andre's. One morning, Ruth pulled her aside in the break room. "You all right, Carter? You've been looking a little pale lately." "I'm fine, ma'am." Ruth sipped her coffee, eyes sharp. "You pregnant?" Maya's breath stopped. "What?" "I've had 3 kids," Ruth said calmly. "I know what it looks like when a woman's body starts changing. You've been holding your back, wearing bigger shirts. That's not fatigue, that's fear." Maya didn't answer. She just walked out, heart pounding so loud it drowned everything else. That night, she sat alone on her couch, staring at her reflection in the dark TV screen. For years, the rules had protected her. Now, they were closing in like cell doors. She pressed both hands to her stomach and whispered, "I'll protect you, no matter what it costs." She didn't know then just how much that promise would demand. By mid-January, Sergeant Ruth Coleman was certain. She didn't have proof, not yet, but her instincts had never failed her in 20 years behind the wire. Something about Officer Maya Carter had changed. The girl who used to quote regulations was now quiet in the wrong way, avoiding eye contact, staying late for no reason, and volunteering for night rounds like her life depended on it. And maybe it did. So Ruth did what veterans do best. She started watching. Not openly, not with cameras or reports, but with the quiet patience of someone who'd seen too many lies dressed up as discipline. She double-checked shift logs, compared entry records, asked subtle questions no one realized were questions. And soon, she found it a pattern. Maya's night shifts often overlapped with Andre Wells' kitchen and library duty. Still, Ruth didn't want to believe it. Maya had been her best recruit, the one she thought might someday wear her stripes. But belief had nothing to do with the truth. One Thursday afternoon, Ruth pulled a copy of an erased surveillance file from IT. Routine backup, they called it, corrupted footage from a week before Christmas. She watched the grainy clip anyway, adjusting brightness until shadows took shape. 2 figures in the kitchen wing. A brief exchange, a touch, then static. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to make her heart sink. That night, Ruth waited until the others left before she started writing her report. Every line felt heavier than the last. Suspicion of inappropriate relationship between staff and inmate. Words that could end a career, maybe a life. She didn't hate Maya. She wanted to protect her, to give her one last chance to come clean before the system chewed her up. So she sealed the documents, the recovered log timestamps, and a partial radio recording that had accidentally caught Maya's voice in the corridor. Soft, trembling, saying, "Please, just a minute more." She placed everything into a manila envelope and locked it in her desk drawer. Tomorrow, she'd talk to her. Tomorrow never came. The next evening, the air in Cedar Ridge felt strange, too still, too heavy. Ruth stayed late in the surveillance office, reviewing footage from another wing. She didn't notice the faint click of the door behind her or the footsteps that followed. Maya stood there, her face pale, eyes rimmed red, hands trembling around something metallic. "You took it," Ruth said without turning. Her tone was calm, almost sad. "The envelope." Maya's voice cracked. "You were going to ruin me." "I was going to help you," Ruth replied, finally looking up. "You still have time to stop this. Just tell the truth before it gets worse." Tears welled in Maya's eyes. "It's not just me anymore, Ruth. You don't understand." Ruth sighed, pushing her chair back. "I understand perfectly. You made a choice. But you're not the only one it'll hurt. Every inmate you've disciplined, every case you've touched, it all collapses once they find out." Maya shook her head, voice small. "I didn't plan this." Ruth reached into the drawer, not for a weapon, but for her phone. "Then let's fix it before someone else finds out. I'll call the warden." Maya's breath hitched. "Don't do that." Ruth turned halfway toward her, eyes stern but kind. "You can still walk out of this with your head high. Don't make me regret caring about you." But fear isn't rational. It's primal. Maya's hand moved faster than thought. The metal flashlight swung down in one quick arc. The first strike landed on Ruth's temple, an awful sound, dull and final. Ruth stumbled, her hand grasping the desk for balance, blood blooming instantly through her gray hair. "Maya," she gasped. The second blow silenced her. The third made sure she'd never speak again. When it was over, the room was filled only with the hum of the monitors and the rain outside. Maya dropped the flashlight. Her hands were slick, her breathing shallow. She sank to her knees beside Ruth's body, whispering, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." For a long moment, she just knelt there, staring at the woman who'd once mentored her. Then the training, the survival instinct, took over. She wiped the handle, dragged Ruth's body toward the file cabinet, knocked it over to make it look like an accident. She shut off the security feed, yanked the hard drive from its port, and stuffed it into her pocket. Then she turned off the lights. In the dark, the small red LED on the control panel blinked twice, recording lost permanently. By morning, the official report read, Sergeant Ruth Coleman, deceased from accidental fall in surveillance room. Blunt force trauma consistent with head impact against file cabinet. No signs of foul play. The warden signed off before lunch. Another workplace tragedy in a system that devoured good people. But Detective Eliza Grant, Internal Affairs, had seen too many accidents to believe in coincidence. When she arrived 3 days later, she took one look at the spotless floor, the missing hard drive, the convenient witness statements, and felt the hairs rise on her neck. Something wasn't right. And when she opened Ruth Coleman's locker, she found a single scrap of paper taped inside the door. A name scrawled in block letters. Carter. Eliza folded the note carefully, slid it into her notebook, and whispered to herself, "Let's see what you were hiding, Officer Carter." Outside, the sky over Cedar Ridge turned the color of ash. And somewhere beyond those gray walls, Maya Carter stood in her dark apartment, hands still shaking, the hard drive hidden beneath her mattress, whispering the same words over and over. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I just want to protect my baby." The woman who stepped through the gates of Cedar Ridge Correctional Facility that February morning didn't belong to its usual rhythm of uniforms and routine. Detective Eliza Grant, Internal Affairs, was not easily mistaken for anyone else. She was tall, mid-40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a calm that made liars nervous. Her badge might have been small, but her presence filled the room. When she first reviewed the file on Sergeant Ruth Coleman's death, the inconsistencies jumped out instantly. Too neat, too clean. Head trauma consistent with a fall, but no blood spatter on the surrounding cabinets. No fingerprints anywhere in the room, not even Ruth's. A missing hard drive from the primary surveillance terminal conveniently logged as corrupted. Eliza had seen cover-ups before. This one reeked of panic, not precision. Her first stop was the surveillance room itself. It still smelled faintly of bleach. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she crouched beside the dented file cabinet. She traced a finger along the metal edge, noticing how the angle didn't match the injury pattern in the autopsy photo. Too high, too sharp. She didn't fall, Eliza muttered to herself. She was struck. When she stood, the rookie officer beside her looked uneasy. "Ma'am, the warden says it was a workplace accident. She worked late, must have tripped." Eliza shot him a look that could freeze steel. "You ever seen someone hit their head 3 times while tripping?" The officer swallowed hard. "No, ma'am. Didn't think so." Over the next 48 hours, Eliza combed through every inch of Ruth's office. She cataloged every file, photographed every drawer, and reconstructed her last 24 hours. That's when she found it. An empty envelope box under the desk, marked confidential staff conduct reports. Someone had taken something. The question wasn't what, but who. Eliza called for a list of all officers who accessed the building after hours that night. The list was short. Only one name appeared twice, once for entry, once for exit around midnight. Officer Maya Carter. Eliza frowned. Carter's record was spotless. Commendations, 0 disciplinary write-ups, perfect attendance. That kind of perfection made Eliza suspicious. In law enforcement, spotless often meant hiding something well. When she first approached Maya for an interview, the younger woman was calm, too calm. Sitting across from her in the staff conference room, Maya kept her hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes downcast, voice steady. I heard Sergeant Coleman fell, she said. She was a good woman. Eliza studied her carefully. You worked with her that night? Yes, ma'am. I left around 10. Eliza flipped open her folder. Funny. The entry logs show you left at 12:04. That's a long time to stay behind after your shift ended. Maya's gaze flickered, but only for a second. Paperwork, she said softly. You know how it piles up. Eliza leaned back, letting the silence stretch. In her experience, silence did more damage than shouting. Finally, she asked, You ever get along with Coleman? Maya hesitated. We respected each other. Respect's a nice word for fear. This time, Maya looked up just for a moment. Her eyes were bloodshot, tired, almost pleading. Detective, I don't know what you think you're looking for, but I didn't hurt anyone. Eliza closed the file. That's the thing, Officer Carter. I don't think. I know. I just haven't proved it yet. Later that night, Eliza replayed the recovered backup footage. The IT team had managed to salvage a few seconds from a corrupted feed, a distorted image from a camera 2 halls away. It showed two silhouettes entering the surveillance room around 11:06 p.m. Only one came out. The timestamp aligned perfectly with Maya's badge scan. But what caught Eliza's attention wasn't the image. It was the sound. A faint, glitchy audio trace. 2 words buried under static. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough for a conviction, but it was enough to follow the scent of guilt. The next morning, Eliza visited the inmate's wing. She wanted to know who might have seen or heard anything that night. Most were tight-lipped, wary. But one man, soft-spoken and unreadable, agreed to talk. Andre Wells. When she mentioned Maya's name, his eyes shifted just slightly, but Eliza caught it. She's good to us, he said. Fair. She don't belong here. Eliza tilted her head. Maybe not, but you seem to care. Andre's jaw tensed. She's just doing her job. Is that what you tell yourself, Mr. Wells? He didn't answer. Eliza left the cell block with one conclusion burning in her mind. This wasn't just about a murder. There was something deeper, emotional, forbidden, dangerous. And if her instincts were right, a secret powerful enough to make a woman kill to protect it. As she looked back toward the rows of barred doors, Eliza murmured under her breath, Whatever you're hiding, Officer Carter, it's about to come undone. The headlines hit every local station before noon. Pregnant officer accused of killing fellow guard at Cedar Ridge Prison. By the time Detective Eliza Grant finished her report, the story had already escaped the department's control. Every network wanted the same image. Maya Carter, the once model officer, walking in a court in shackles, a slight swell beneath her beige jumpsuit. To the public, she was a monster. To Eliza, she was a tragedy. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and fluorescent light. Justice stripped bare. Reporters crowded the aisles. Camera shutters clicked like insects. At the defense table, Maya sat rigid, her wrists cuffed to her lap, her dark hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. She hadn't spoken since her arrest 2 weeks earlier. Not when Eliza found the hidden hard drive beneath her mattress. Not when the recovered footage revealed everything. The confrontation, the flashlight, the desperate cleanup. Not even when she saw the photo of Ruth Coleman's blood on her own uniform sleeve. But when the judge read the charges, voluntary manslaughter, evidence tampering, and sexual misconduct with an inmate, Maya finally raised her head. I didn't mean to kill her, she whispered. I was just trying to protect my baby. The room fell silent. The prosecution's opening statement was merciless. Officer Carter violated her oath, her badge, and the law. She traded authority for desire and murdered a woman who discovered her secret. They showed the photos, Ruth's body, the dented cabinet, the wiped drives, the recovered video clip where Ruth's faint voice could be heard saying, "You still have a choice." Then came Andre Wells. Shackled, escorted by guards, he took the stand. His presence filled the room with tension, the forbidden lover and the silent witness. How long did you know Officer Carter? The prosecutor asked. About 9 months, Andre said quietly. Describe your relationship. He hesitated. She treated us with respect. That's all. Respect. The prosecutor stepped closer. You got her pregnant, Mr. Wells. That doesn't sound like respect. Andre's eyes flicked toward Maya. I didn't force her. We both made mistakes. The judge hammered the gavel once. When the defense took over, Andre's tone changed. She never used her power to hurt anyone. She cared. She believed people could still be good. It wasn't enough to erase what happened, but for a moment, even the gallery seemed to breathe softer. Then it was Eliza Grant's turn. She took the stand, professional but human. Detective, the defense attorney asked, you investigated Officer Carter's case personally? Yes. In your opinion, did she act with intent to kill? Eliza paused. No, I think she panicked. A murmur ran through the room. Then why testify for the prosecution? Eliza looked at Maya, her voice firm but weary. Because panic doesn't erase a death. Sergeant Coleman deserved truth. When she stepped down, their eyes met. One filled with regret, the other with understanding. After 4 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for 9 hours. When they returned, the foreman's voice shook slightly as he read the verdict. Guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Guilty of evidence tampering. Guilty of sexual misconduct with an inmate. Maya closed her eyes. The room spun. The sentence, 18 years in state prison, with no parole for the first 12. No one cheered. No one gasped. It was the kind of silence that follows a storm, the wreckage too heavy to measure. 2 months later, the same woman once trusted to guard prisoners now lived among them at Maple Hollow Women's Correctional Center. The irony wasn't lost on her. Each door she heard slam shut echoed the same sound she'd once commanded others to obey. Her pregnancy advanced quickly. Despite the guards' whispers, a few nurses treated her kindly. One of them, a soft-spoken young woman named Camille Ortiz, became her quiet companion. You're strong, Camille said one evening as she helped Maya breathe through a contraction. You'll make it through this. Maya smiled weakly. I thought strength was following rules. Turns out it's surviving when you've broken them. The labor came on a rainy night in late April. Thunder rolled outside, the same kind of storm that had started it all. There was no epidural, no family waiting room, no hand to hold except Camille's. The concrete walls swallowed her screams. For 8 hours, she labored on a narrow cot beneath a flickering light. When the baby's first cry filled the cell, Maya broke completely. Camille wrapped the tiny girl in a thin hospital blanket and whispered, "It's a girl." Maya cradled her, tears cutting through months of silence. "Harmony," she whispered. "Her name's Harmony Grace." She held her daughter close, pressing her lips to the baby's forehead. For the first time since Ruth Coleman's death, the ache in her chest loosened. Not from forgiveness, but from purpose. The next morning, Nia Carter arrived. Her eyes were red, her voice soft. "She's beautiful," she said, taking the baby gently from Maya's arms. Maya nodded, barely able to speak. "Promise me she won't grow up ashamed of me." Nia's throat tightened. "She'll know the truth. Just not all of it." A guard cleared her throat. Time was up. Maya kissed her daughter one last time, memorizing every sound, every breath. "You weren't born from shame," she whispered. "You were born from love." Then the door closed between them, sealing the moment forever. Back at her desk, Eliza Grant finished the final report. She could have ended it with the usual bureaucratic lines, but instead, she wrote a single note at the bottom. Case closed. Subject displayed remorse. Recommend psychological support and maternal visitation rights post-sentencing. Before filing it away, she lingered on one thought. Some prisons aren't made of concrete. Some are built from choices, and love can be the strongest cage of all. 5 years passed. The story that once made front-page headlines had long been buried under new scandals, new names, new faces. But inside the quiet corridors of Maple Hollow Women's Correctional Center, Maya Carter's name still carried a strange kind of reverence. To some, she was a warning, a reminder of what loneliness and bad choices could cost. To others, she was something else entirely, a woman trying, day by day, to turn her guilt into purpose. She taught literacy classes now, helping other inmates read court documents and letters from home. When she spoke about the importance of words, her voice carried the quiet conviction of someone who had once lost everything to silence. But at night, when the cell block went still, the past returned. The image of Sergeant Ruth Coleman lying on the cold floor never faded. Neither did the sound of her daughter's first cry, the only pure thing left from a life gone wrong. Every month, Maya wrote a letter she could never send. "Harmony, my sweet girl, you're growing without me, and that's my punishment. But if you ever wonder who I was, know that your life was my confession. You were the one good thing I ever did without breaking the law." She kept each letter folded beneath her pillow. Outside those walls, life moved on. Nia Carter raised Harmony Grace in a small, quiet home on the outskirts of Atlanta. The little girl had Maya's eyes, calm, dark, searching. Each birthday, a package arrived in the mail, a children's book with a handwritten note on the inside cover. No return address, no signature, just the same phrase, year after year. "Be better than where you came from." Nia suspected who sent them. She never told Harmony, but she never threw them away either. By the time Harmony turned 9, she'd built a small library of them. Stories about hope, forgiveness, and the kind of courage that doesn't always wear armor. She'd ask sometimes, "Aunt Nia, who keeps sending me these?" Nia would smile faintly and say, "Someone who wants you to grow strong." Meanwhile, Detective Eliza Grant was nearing retirement. She'd spent decades chasing lies, corruption, and human darkness, but the Carter case still haunted her. It wasn't the murder, it was the why. One evening, while clearing old files, she found the final case folder. The edges were worn, the ink faded. She flipped through photos, the crime scene, Maya's mugshot, the ultrasound recovered from her Bible. For a long time, Eliza just stared at the picture of the baby's tiny form. She whispered, "You'll never know how hard your mother fought to protect you." That night, Eliza did something she hadn't done in years. She wrote a letter. "To Harmony Grace, I was the detective who sent your mother to prison. She broke the law, but she never stopped loving you. I hope you never grow up to hate her. The world is already full of people who hate too easily." She didn't send it, but she kept it tucked at her desk under a note that simply read, "For closure someday." Back inside Maple Hollow, time had softened Maya. Her hair was streaked with gray now, her voice steadier. She'd become something of a quiet leader among the inmates, respected, not feared. When a new prisoner came in sobbing after sentencing, Maya would sit beside her and say, "You can't rewrite your past, but you can choose what your story means." It was advice she'd never been able to take herself, but saying it still mattered. One spring afternoon, a counselor handed her a small envelope. "It's approved. You can read it privately." Inside was a child's handwriting, uneven but clear. "Dear Mommy, Aunt Nia said I could write to you. I'm learning how to spell big words now. I hope you're okay. I read all the books from the man who sends them. My favorite one is about the butterfly that gets out of the cocoon. I think that's you. Love, Harmony." Maya pressed the paper to her chest and wept until her body shook. For the first time in years, she let herself imagine a future that didn't end inside gray walls. 5 more years would pass before Maya saw the outside again. On the morning of her release, Eliza Grant stood quietly near the exit gate. The detective's hair was white now, but her eyes were still sharp. "You didn't have to come," Maya said softly. Eliza shrugged. "I wanted to make sure you actually walked out this time." They stood there for a moment, neither speaking. Finally, Eliza reached into her coat pocket and handed Maya an old photo. Ruth Coleman, smiling beside a Christmas tree at the prison staff party. "I thought you should have this," Eliza said. She believed in people, even when she shouldn't have. Maya nodded, eyes glistening. "So did you." Eliza managed a faint smile. "Go live, Carter. That's the only way any of this means something." That evening, under an orange Georgia sunset, Maya walked toward a small park where a girl was playing with a kite. Nia stood nearby, watching. Harmony turned, curious, her eyes locking on the stranger by the gate. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the wind lifted the kite higher, and Harmony laughed, a sound so bright it almost hurt. Maya smiled faintly and whispered, "Be free, baby." Then she turned and walked away. Later that night, Eliza sat on her porch, writing her final case note before retirement. Some people break rules for greed, some for hate, but a few break them for love. And those are the ones who haunt you the longest. Because love, even in its worst form, is still the reason most crimes begin. She closed the file, took a deep breath, and looked toward the horizon, where one story ended and another had finally begun.